This is Mafia, Definitive Edition Remastered, the 2020 remake of the beloved Mafia game from 2002. And this is one of the first videos in our brand new series called Analysis, where we analyze interesting games to see how they work. In this episode, we're going to look at Mafia, The Dawn's Truth. It's a loaded gun, an interesting and actually pretty important Mafia game that somehow managed to completely escape my memory, despite it being only one of 3 games in the series. That's odd because I have very fond memories of the original Mafia. I even did a speedrun of it for the channel before, which you can watch here if you want. But somehow, the second game, has completely escaped my mind. It's like it never existed. So let's see what makes this game tick by analyzing the opening sequence of the game. In the original Mafia, the player character is a guy named Tommy Angelo, who gets slowly drawn into the Mafia. This takes place in the 1930s, and the game plays out like a movie with cutscenes, dialogue, and so on. This isn't all that uncommon for games based around story. The Definitive Edition remake updates the graphics to be more modern while keeping the gameplay and story relatively the same. However, when it comes to the sequel, things change quite a bit. The original 2010 game was a much more open-ended game, where the player could roam free and cause havoc in a city inspired by 1940s New Orleans. You were no longer just a taxi driver who gets caught up in the Mafia. Instead, you played as a soldier for the Mafia. The Definitive Edition simply polished up the graphics again, but also added some extra features, such as a sort of companion app that lets you check your stats and stuff like that. It doesn't really matter for the purposes of this video, though. Anyway, the second game takes place in the fictional town of Lost Heaven. The game opens with a trip to the docks, which is handled entirely through cutscenes. We see 2 characters conversing about the possibility of war breaking out between the US and Japan. To me, this has always felt like an attempt to make the game feel a bit more serious by grounding it in reality. There are real-world events happening, and our characters talk about it for a bit, which establishes that this isn't just some cartoonish world full of mustache-twirling villains. Eventually, one of these characters, our contact at the docks, is killed by enemy Mafia forces. This happens in another cutscene, and it's framed almost like a QuickTime event, which is interesting because this game does not have QuickTime events. Just after he dies, our character wakes up in an alleyway, and we get our first proper look at the gameplay. The first thing we do is look around the corpse of our contact, which gives us some basic information about him, including his name, age, occupation, cause of death, and so on. It's an early example of environmental storytelling. After leaving the docks, we now find ourselves in the open world of Lost Heaven. This is where the tutorial section of the game begins. The main objective here is to reach our safe house without being spotted by the police. This is easier said than done, as the cops are actually pretty aggressive and will chase us if they see us. Eventually, we make it back to the safe house, and the tutorial section is complete. The game then moves on to another cutscene. This one shows our boss talking about how we need to eliminate the head of the rival family, Sal Marcano. Cutscenes are used throughout the game to advance the plot along and introduce new characters. They don't necessarily show the actual gameplay or anything like that. They're just there to tell the story. After this cutscene, we meet another new character, a hitman, who will teach us how combat works in the game. Our first task is to eliminate some members of the rival family. This is pretty easy, and the tutorial continues with some more gunplay against some more enemies. At the end of this sequence, we get to test out driving for the first time. Now, Mafia 2 is notable for its focus on realism. When playing as a mobster, you need to keep an eye on your surroundings at all times. If you go toe-to-toe with the police, you'll probably die. It's better to keep a low profile and drive away whenever things start to heat up. Stealth is also a big part of the game, and there are many ways to take down targets. For example, here we decided to simply drive into them. Another option would have been to sneak up on them and use our knife for a stealth takedown. There's even the option to lure enemies into a trap, although this is a bit more advanced and requires planning ahead. Once the assassination is completed, we return to the safe house to be debriefed by our boss. After this, we're left alone to explore the city once more. Now, unlike the first game, the level design in the second game is non-linear. The player can choose to tackle missions in any order they want. On the map, there are different icons to show where missions are. But otherwise, there's no hand-holding. It's up to the player to decide how they want to play. As an example, say we decide to tackle this mission next. which involves rescuing some kidnapped women. The first step is to sneak into an apartment building. Like in the first game, we can look around objects to gather intel. In this case, it turns out that our target is staying in apartment 36. Before we go inside, we're given the choice to equip a weapon. Weapons are useful for obvious reasons, but also add a realism element to the game. If you shoot someone nearby, civilians will try to flee. Using a silencer is therefore recommended. We begin by sneaking into the room next door to our target. Inside, we find a man who needs to be dealt with. There are several options here. We could try to silently take him out, but there's also the option to simply kill everyone inside the building. Doing so will obviously make things much more difficult, but that's also an option. In this case, we chose to go loud, so we proceeded to shoot everyone inside the apartment complex. There's a small amount of police AI that exists in this game, but they're mostly there to react to the player's actions. They do unnecessarily pursue you unless you're respotted by multiple cops or try to ram them over. This means that there's no such thing as wanted levels in this game. If you're spotted, the cops will respond. How much they respond depends on how many cops you have chasing you. In our case, we had shot so many people that the entire police force of Lost Heaven was after us. Getting out of this situation requires us to switch to driving. We made it to our getaway car, got in, and drove straight into the nearby river. This caused the police to lose interest, and eventually we were able to dry ourselves off and continue the mission. Inside the apartment, we find our target and the kidnapped women. We need to escort them to the car. Once again, there are multiple ways to approach this. If we want to be stealthy, we can knock out our target and take him to the car. Tonk 2 civilians won't draw attention to themselves. An alternate approach would be to bring our target to the car and then use the women as human shields. It's all up to you how you play. In our case, we decided to simply bring them all together. Naturally, this alerted the neighbor, who immediately called the cops. We told our target to get in the car while we held off the cops. Once he was in the car, we got in and drove away. From here, we're guided to another cutscene, and the mission is complete. In summary, Mafia 2 is a game about playing as a mobster in the 1940s and 50s. It features a compelling story split up by open-world levels. As a member of the Mafia, it's up to you to carry out your boss's orders and eliminate targets. Gameplay revolves around stealth and realism. Chasing down and eliminating high-profile targets is all well and good, but getting caught doing so is not. That's it for this episode of Analysis. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to leave a like. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, consider subscribing to the channel. A special thanks to our supporters who help us make high-quality videos like this one.